Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
And I'm Trish.
And today we will be playing the, I don't know, maybe 7th, maybe 8th. Bernard definitely didn't just tell me that this was the 8th episode of Persona 2 Part 2, where we play everything up until the end of the main game.
Sam knows it annoys me when he doesn't know what number episode we're on.
So I had to do it anyways. But before we talk about the ending of this game, how was everybody's week?
Pretty good. I played the end of Persona 2 Eternal Punishment.
What a coincidence. So did I.
I didn't. But I did finish this really interesting YouTube video called Persona 2 Eternal Punishment Game Movie, All Cutscenes and Dialogue.
Nice.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
It was a very good YouTube video. Highly recommend. But, yeah, it's weird that Maddie's not on these episodes because me and Bernard are both on the Kaseki episodes, which are now also weekly. So it's like, oh, what happened in my week? And that week is the last 2 days. A really cool thing that I'm not allowed to talk about for another 2 weeks happened.
Ooh.
Which is really cool, but I can't talk about it for 2 weeks. So other than that, I don't know. I've been working and playing video games, and that's
one thing
life.
I did was I shaved my head, as I sometimes do, because I don't like getting haircuts. Mm-hmm. So I just let my hair grow out, and then I get tired of it and shave my head. But somehow a tiny little hair got embedded in my fingertip like a splinter.
What the fuck?
And it hurts, and I can't get it out.
Oh.
That sounds entirely unpleasant.
It is. Although I think I've caused myself more pain trying to get it out than I have just received as passive damage from it.
Yeah, you see, you take like 1 damage per round, but if you fail your Constitution saving throw, then you take 1d6 damage. So
yes,
that's what's happening.
Exactly.
I have actually been in similar situations, and I'm very sorry. It's fun.
I know what's happened in the last 2 days. Scarlett has finally started kindergarten, which is the first of the homeschools that you have to tell the cops what you're up to, which is
nice. Wild.
But it's exciting because she's a big girl and she's like learning real shit. Like we got like a homeschool curriculum and like things are planned out like every week what she's going to be learning, and it's crazy, and it's exciting, and I love it. They also told me that they think that they are a she, her, he, him, and they want to go by both Scarlet and Salem, which is super cool. And yeah, and I love, like, I know him a lot, and he is dramatic and wants to do things to be cool. And I recently have added 2 friends that come over a lot that are both non-binary, and I feel that this is a phase related to having gender explored in front of them. But I think that supporting my child through a phase is super important, because if I support them through the phase, whenever it's not a phase, I will also support them, and they will know that they can come to me. And that's the plan.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the right move.
Yeah. So it's cool and exciting. And I love my kiddos so much. Storm is going through his vocabulary explosion, so he'll never shut up. And it's simultaneously adorable and frustrating because I'm just trying to like talk to Summer or something, and he's just constantly. The number one thing he does lately is he'll ask you if you're okay, or he'll take something from right in front of you and hand it to you and say, "Here you go, Dad." And it's like, "Thanks, Storm. Thanks. I really needed this phone of mine that you took from my hands, but okay."
Nice. I also got the fancy new Omicron booster. It made my arm hurt.
Nice. Did it like fuck you up for a couple hours like the previous ones were known to do?
No, the vaccines have never fucked me up. They've just made my arm hurt.
Okay. Yeah, they like break me out in a fever for a couple hours and it sucks. And I go to bed early. So hopefully when I go get mine, it won't fuck me up too much, but I will plan for it to, just in case.
Part of me was like, oh man, if this fucks me up, maybe I can be like, sorry, can't do my work today. I'm fucked up because of the vaccine, but I did my work.
Dang. Uncool. What about you? What about you, Trish? Have you had anything exciting happen in the last 7-ish days?
I'm trying to think, and the answer is mostly no. New member of my polycule, but I don't know if that was within the last week. I mean, really, the only thing that's memorable about the last week, and it's not a good thing, is just 2 of my weekly D&D games were canceled this week. Not like long term, just for this week, and that means that most of my regular social interaction has not existed.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of craving that. I have to wait till Sunday for anything, so that's not great. But otherwise doing good.
Yeah. Oh, also the Queen of England fucking died.
Yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's never happened to me before. It's been 70 fucking years.
Yeah, I know, right? One of my girlfriends is Canadian, so she had some thoughts about that mean more than mine, because for me it's like, I don't know the bitch.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I don't know enough, but I do know she colonized India, so fuck them.
I mean, technically, her predecessor was the last emperor of India.
Okay. I thought she was still involved. I thought I had saw that today. Like I said, I don't know shit.
I'm sure she didn't do anything great for India.
True. It was schooled by the American public school system, so I don't know shit about shit.
Yeah.
I know a bit, but I could definitely know more.
You know what we could know more about?
A video game.
And
which is what really matters.
Yeah, so let's listen to some Persona 2 music and talk about the ending of this game.
The notes this time are long.
Yeah.
Understandably.
A lot happened.
I'm excited for this to be a 21-minute episode.
Yep. So the gang meets Totinos at Alaya Shrine. Maya immediately collapses. She has a vision of the other side when Tatsuya Sudo was standing in front of the burning shrine and baby Totinos was falling on the ground. And from within the shrine, Maya called out to Totinos to run. A persona emerged from Totinos and attacked Tatsuya. It was really hard for me to not say Totinos instead of Tatsuya, because I'm used to doing that for some reason. Back on this side, Totinos says the memory of the other side is in Maya as well, and tells the gang to follow him to Mount Iwato. The gang goes to Mount Iwato. Totinos says this is where unconscious memories lie. Just like the other side, we go into a series of chambers where visions of the past are shown. The first one is just a bunch of first gamers talking about graduating and promising to meet back up if their dreams come true. Though I will note that in this flashback, Nanjo says his dream is to be the #1 man in the world. And I'm like, Nanjo, that is not a specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely goal. And you might think that since we just saw a Nanjo memory, we'll be seeing a memory from each member of the party. And you'd be wrong. The gang heads further into the caves and sees visions of Totinos, Lisa, and Aikichi in the principal's office when Aikichi gave Lisa the nickname Ginkgo. Except in the original translation of the PlayStation 1 version, she doesn't call him Undie Boss, she calls him Pants Leader, which is amazing.
It's so good.
I prefer Undie Boss, but it was very good.
Anyway, as before, Maya and Yukino enter and speak to the kids. Present Totinos tells the gang what happened on the other side. The gang still does not get it. Totinos spells out that he's from a different reality. He's the other side version, inhabiting the body of the Totinos from this side. In another chamber, we see the Alpha Timeline gang fighting Tatsuya Sudo. Present Totinos talks about the Oracle of Maya and all that crazy shit that happened in the last game. Weirdly, he doesn't bring up Hitler, which if I had killed Hitler, I would bring it up at any opportunity.
Right?
Absolutely.
Totinos explains that the Tatsuya of this side was told by him of the existence of the other side and was being used. Ulala asks why among them only Maya has memories of the other side. Totinos says there are many reasons, and he doesn't think they should know anymore, which is very helpful.
Honestly, I was so sick of his bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maya gets a dialogue option and says they have a right to know, and Totinos reluctantly leads them further. In the next chamber, we see the Alpha Timeline gang right when June stopped being Joker. We see their tearful reunion, then Nyarlathotep appears in the form of Kashihara. Present Totinos explains how they played a masked circle, then locked Maya in the shrine when she was going to move away and thought she died. He says June became a Joker controlled by him and tried to end the world in exchange for the ideal evolution. Katsuya, fine. Yes?
I was just going to say, am I the only one who feels like the pairings of these specific flashbacks with the things they're supposed to be explaining could be a lot better?
Yeah.
Yes.
This last one especially, it's just like, okay, if you want to show them being kids who knew each other, why don't you show that, though?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But Katsuya finally asks who him is. Totino says his appearance, quote, was that of June's father, but inside was completely different. The crawling chaos, Nyarlathotep. He is the being that stands opposite to Philemon, the shadow that lurks deep within man's heart, toying with destiny. Totino says Nyarlathotep wants to cause the same thing to happen on this side as happened on the other side. Balfu asks what he means by that. Totino says, they'll find out. In the next chamber, we see the gang in the collective unconsciousness, aka Philemon's space gazebo, at the end of the last game. We see Okamura kill Maya, fulfilling the Oracle of Maya and destroying the world and leaving only Sumeru behind. Totinos explains that by erasing their meeting 10 years ago, they created another reality in exchange for their memories. He says his friends on this side forgot all about each other, but that could change. Nyarlathotep said Totinos was the paradox. If they all regain their memories, the distortion between the two worlds will grow, and this world will cease to exist. Totinos does his angry sad boy routine of telling them not to get involved. A scene which, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense with the weird localization plays out. Did it not make sense to y'all?
No, it didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not just me who didn't really understand why Totinos ends up agreeing to work with the party and use the power of friendship.
Also, if I can just say, the showing of Maya's death scene for the end of the last game was really weirdly emotionally affecting for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was really well done.
I feel like even though maybe because she's silent in this game, I've grown more attached to her than I was last game, which I guess just I've had a whole other game to be growing attached to her, and she's been getting interesting characterization in ways that are done without speaking.
I was going to say, I think it's because she's the only character who you kind of get 2 whole games worth of stuff with, which is something I'm probably going to want to dig into later.
Yeah. So anyway, Totinos joins the party. Nanjo says his work here is done because the party can only have 5 members. I'm wondering if the reason he gives for leaving is clearer in the original Japanese, or if it is very much just like, nah, I'm out. But anyway, with Totinos now in the party, it's time to head to the ancient underground spaceship Torofune, aka Zabalba, because something can't have just one name in these games. The gang gets there by riding an abandoned subway car. On the way, Balfu asks what they were like on the other side. Totinos says what he knows, which is that his brother was the same, Ulala was scammed by that same person, and all he knows about Balfu is that he spread rumors. Totinos asks Balfu if it's hard being an adult. Balfu says there's nothing good, the pain just keeps growing. No one steps in to contradict him. The gang arrives at Torofune. We see the control room where Tatsuzo gives a speech to a bunch of hired goons about his evil plan to cleanse the world and shit. Sugawara mutters, "You twisted bastard." Tatsuzo turns to Sugawara and says, "I leave the Torofune to you. We will ascend to Utena with Gozen." He also tells Sugawara not to worry about his frailty, that his wish for immortality will be granted, though, he mutters, your body might change slightly.
Just an instant like, well, we're going to get some body horror later.
Yeah. At the entrance, Totinos explains how the ship will make their thoughts reality, so they need to avoid thinking of anything negative like, say, a trap. Smash cut to the gang caught in a trap. Totinos is like, heck, I thought about a trap we encountered last time, sorry. It's very funny.
It's a very funny scene, especially the two people, Baofu and Katsuya, both saying that their sunglasses are melting off.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize that Smash Cut was in the game, because in the video they just unceremoniously are cutting out all gameplay footage. So I thought, oh, they must have gone through the dungeon for a bit and then hit a trap. But no, that's amazing.
No, it's a Smash Cut in the game. It's so
fantastic.
So eventually, the gang ends up hoping for a velvet room and a Trish's fountain. They appear. Katsuya asks why Nyarlathotep would allow these to appear, and Totinos gives the classic excuse that he's toying with them. Katsuya, Baofu, and Ulala head inside the gaming abstraction rooms. Totinos sits down against the wall. Maya walks over and sits next to him. He doesn't say anything to her. Maya thanks Totinos for saving her. He just says, "This is the burden of sin." Then a Golden June, Lisa, and Aikichi enter. They ask Totinos if he still cares about them. He tells Maya that these are illusions that his heart called. He tries to attack, but it's not working. Metal June tells Totinos he doesn't have to suffer by himself anymore. One by one, the metal friends disappear. Then Totinos disappears too. The rest of the gang comes out of the gaming abstraction rooms, and Maya's like, hey, I lost Totinos. The gang heads off in search of Totinos. as I do every time I go to the grocery store. They wind up at a copy of Elia Shrine, where Totinos is laid out on an altar surrounded by the Metal Friends. The Metal Friends and Totinos say vague, angry, sad boy things at each other, and eventually June says Totinos can stop suffering, and he lifts a sword above Totinos. Totinos catches the blade with his bare hand and says he'll accept his punishment, but not now. The gang busts in and Totinos leaps off the altar, and he says he'll accept his punishment, but not now. I guess he thought that was a good line and wanted to make sure everyone heard it.
It's so, because June says the exact same thing too. Like, did they accidentally rewrite the scene and forget to do it? Do they say something different in Japanese and they out of context translated it? Like, it's bonkers to me that it's the exact same two text boxes back to back.
I don't know. Maybe it was a problem with the spreadsheet that the translator was working with.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a boss fight against the Metal Friends, and it's hard. You can't use physical attacks on him. But after defeating the Metal Friends, maybe after a try or two, the gang finds themselves back in Torofune. Katsuya bandages Totinos' hand, and the gang continues onward. They find their way to the control room, where there are a bunch of mangled goons. Katsuya finds one that's still alive. The goon says the general became a monster and slaughtered everyone. Then a freaky monster shows up, identified by the game as what was Sugawara. I believe in the PlayStation version it just says was Sugawara, but I'm pretty sure that in the PSP version it said what was Sugawara, which I find
much better
literary.
Yeah.
Proper grammar.
Yes. The room starts glowing, and we see a viewport open on the wall. Outside, a castle is lifted up on a giant pillar in the middle of the city. Then Torofune starts to ascend, carrying Sumeru up with it. The gang is dumbstruck. Totinos says, "It's not too late. Sudo is probably in that castle, and he still has to do the dragon ritual." TFW, you still have to do the dragon ritual. They haven't lost yet. We have a boss fight against what was Sugawara, and it is hard because he keeps healing himself. After kicking what was Sugawara's ass, the gang tries to take control of the ship, but it's not working. They're filled with determination to go kick Sudo's ass. They use a convenient teleporter to warp out of Torofune and head to the castle. Or they can wander around the city and see what everyone has to say about the city taking off on a spaceship, because clearly there's no ticking clock here.
Mm-hmm.
The dragon ritual can wait. The gang gets to the castle, and there's a minor but time-consuming puzzle. Eventually, they reach the roof, where Tatsuzo stands over some mangled corpses holding a bloody sword. The bad guy says bad guy shit, and the heroes say hero shit. Tatsuzo calls on Gozen, and we see Kegare being released all over the world. The dragons, who are flying through the sky as real things, freak out and start flying around Torofune. Gozen turns Tatsuzo into a monster, and we fight it. Then, without a chance to save or anything, Gozen absorbs the dead bodies and turns into a weird turtle-looking monster thing, and we fight it as well. 2 separate boss fights, both in a row. It's intense.
That's why the classic thing I learned in Paper Mario Thousand Year Door still holds up. Make sure you have just enough experience. The first boss fight levels you up.
Yes. After getting its ass kicked, Gozen erupts into a pillar of light. It turns into a giant portal in the sky. Sumeru gets sucked up into it, with Torofune dissolving under it. The dragons get sucked in and dissolve as well. The gang finds themselves in the collective unconsciousness, aka space. Nyarlathotep takes the form of Totinos in his school uniform and greets them. Totinos immediately tries to slash him, but Nyarlathotep catches the blade. Nyarlathotep takes the forms of the other party members, and he says villain shit. He says he's a reflection of humanity. He summons June, Aikichi, and Lisa, suspended and unconscious behind him. He says if the gang prove their power against the shadows here, he will give the kids back. But if they don't, the kids will regain their memories and this world will end. So there's going to be a pattern coming up where Maya has a dialogue option and there's a correct one and an incorrect one. And if they do the correct one, the person in question will overcome their shadow, and the first Persona 2 game character won't regain their memories. The movie version shows both of the dialogue options being chosen, but only shows the results of the incorrect ones. And honestly, the incorrect ones are kind of more interesting, I think. Maybe that's why they did that. Because you don't get a bad ending, you just get a different ending. A slightly different ending. But I did the true ending one, so that's what I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
So partway through the dungeon, we see a vision of high school Katsuya telling Kashihara that he wants to give up his dream of becoming a fucking pastry chef and become a fucking cop. Shadow Katsuya appears and tells Katsuya he despises his father and brother for getting in the way of his dreams. He says, "Don't play innocent, you're in love with that woman." He means Maya, but this isn't like followed up on. It isn't like a thing later. And it wasn't really a thing before. But I guess it's a thing. Now, in this present moment. Shadow Katsuya tells Katsuya to kill his brother and stuff, and in the weakest fake out ever, Katsuya points his gun at Totinos. Maya tells Katsuya she believes in him. He admits to Totinos that what Shadow Katsuya said was partially true and partially untrue. He does a sick spin and shoots Shadow Katsuya, who disappears. Later on, the gang sees a scene of Ulala and Maya at a bar. Ulala's upset and acting really jealous of Maya. She says she's not satisfied with herself and doesn't have a place in this world. Maya falls asleep.
Okay, can I just say, I related to Ulala way too much in this scene.
I think we all did.
Like, just, that feeling of, like, trying to talk to someone and, like, share some personal stuff, and then realizing that they didn't hear anything you said.
Mm-hmm.
It really sucks.
Yeah. Usually the person doesn't actually fall asleep, though.
That's actually happened to me multiple times.
Oh. Well, it does happen sometimes, I guess. Anyway, back in the collective unconsciousness, Shadow Ulala appears and tells Ulala she sucks and stuff like that. Shadow Ulala tells Maya to tell Ulala whether she found herself or not. Maya says it's not up to her to answer. Ulala thanks Maya and says she was wrong to try and find herself. You've got to make yourself. Herself isn't anywhere to be found. She's got to do it herself, and it's a good scene. Shadow Ulala disappears. Eventually, the gang reaches a room where they see Aikichi suspended. So in the movie version, Aikichi wakes up, remembers everything. We have a sort of tearful scene between Aikichi and Totinos. But, and in the true version, he stays asleep. Either way, the gang fights Shadow Ulala and Shadow Katsuya, then Philemon warps Aikichi back to the real world. Later on, we see a scene of a persona holding a woman by the throat. She's identified as Miki Asai, Baofu's old partner in investigating the mafia.
I love that, like, they got to the end and they realized that, like, we needed to make the new characters matter to this resolution to the last game, and we get a character introduction text box in the final cutscenes of the game.
Right?
It's like, oh yeah, Baofu has no reason to be here, so let's make him have a Persona flashback too.
Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think this character has been referred to a few times as like part of Baofu's motivation, but not shown up and not, I don't think, given a name.
Yeah.
She was referred to before. Yes. Katya said referred to her and Baofu getting offed in something and asked if this was all to avenge Miki Asai.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know completely what you mean, and I agree. One of the things I was going to want to talk about later is just like, I do feel like the first game was a little stronger, if only just in the sense that it could concentrate on just its cast, while this game had a whole new cast of characters too, but was so busy telling the story of the first game that it didn't give them quite as much time.
The story of the first two games.
You're right. The story of the first two games.
Persona 1 in this game too.
Exactly.
Which then it made it make sense on why when they looked at the two of them and they picked this one, because this one tells the story of last game and it ties into Persona 1. It, like if you only got one of them to be the Persona 2, I see why they picked this one. It's stupid. I think the first game is crucial in that fact, but I get what you mean. It. Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with y'all.
Ooh, okay.
Interesting.
Anyway, the persona is identified as Reverse Odysseus. It says, Kaoru Saga, I am you. What is yours is also mine. The persona kills Miki. Baofu readies his deadly coins, but Maya yells, Don't do it! Baofu stands down and says, Me. It's not Tatsuzo, not Young Pao, or you. The one I can't forgive is me. A ghost of Miki appears. Baofu tells her he's sorry, that I wasn't able to do anything. I shouldn't have gotten you involved. It was my fault that you died that day. It wasn't the persona, it wasn't the law, it was me. It was my fault. I was so damn selfish. Miki tells Baofu not to blame himself, that she knew the risk she was taking. She says he never looked back, always believed in himself. She liked that person. Back in the collective unconsciousness, Baofu admits that he wanted revenge so badly that he used the gang to get at Tatsuzo and Young Pao. Ulala and Katsuya try to cheer him up. It clearly works, and he starts antagonizing Katsuya again like normal. Next, the gang runs into Nyarlathotep again. He asks Maya what she's angry at. She says she's just very sad. He tells her to go ahead and shoot him. He says, Oh, have I used a voice for Nyarlathotep yet? Whatever, I don't do consistent voices for these characters anyway. I just do whatever feels right in the moment. The boy that holds your heart is mine. He's a toy in the shape of a human. He'll never be yours. Never. Maya does not shoot Nyarlathotep. And this is significant for some reason, even though she's going to shoot him a lot of times in the final battle. Spoiler. Nyarlathotep seems disappointed and disappears. Next, the gang finds Lisa suspended. Shadow Baofu and Shadow Maya show up and say nihilistic nonsense. We fight Shadow Baofu and Shadow Maya. And in one timeline, we get a scene where Lisa wakes up and remembers, and in another, she doesn't, and either way, Philemon warps her away. Eventually, the gang finds their way to the heart of the collective unconsciousness, aka Philemon's space gazebo, where Nyarlathotep is waiting. He summons June, suspended above them. He says they must expose Totinos' sin to his friends. We see the ending of last game, with Totinos' friends saying goodbye to him. But Totinos panics at the last moment. He can't accept losing his friends. He cries for them not to go. Nyarlathotep reveals that Totinos rejected his promise to forget. That's why he remembered his friends, why the boundary between the worlds was broken, why this world stands on the brink of destruction. That is his sin that he's been so angry sad boy about. Nyarlathotep says, A sin must have punishment. That's why I gave you the chance to meet her again. I coaxed fate for you all to meet again. Totinos had regained his memories when he met Maya. That's something that's revealed in here, and I didn't find an elegant way to insert it into the notes, but it happened, and that's explained here. Anyway, Nyarlathotep talks about fate and how humanity desires destruction. The gang tells Totinos that fate is bullshit because we're JRPG heroes, so we think fate is bullshit. Totinos says he won't turn his back on the sin he committed or himself. Nyarlathotep turns into his freaky monster form and attacks. Final boss time. The gang kicks Nyarlathotep's ass. He hollers about how he can't believe and won't accept this. Philemon appears, holding June, and says, "Brawling chaos, accept your defeat. They represent the potential of mankind. You, the dark side of the collective unconsciousness, are linked to all humans. That is why they moved the hearts of the people." Nyarlathotep laughs at his fate and says as long as humans exist, so will he. Maya and Totinos give Nyarlathotep one final attack, and he disappears. Ulala asks if it's over. Totinos says there's one last thing. He must return to the other side. Maya thanks Totinos for all he did. Totinos says his goodbyes. He says that all that's left of his world is Sumeru, but they will rebuild a great world. Balfu says there's one thing he forgot to tell Totinos. There are good things even when you become an adult. Just a few. We see a ghostly mirror image of Totinos emerge from Totinos' body. Totinos, from the other side, tells Maya that they are connected by this ocean and they can meet again. The ghostly mirror image disappears, and Totinos falls unconscious. Narration text, which seems to be from the perspective of a specific person, but I don't know who it is, says, "The specter has retreated to the deep corners of the subconscious, so too has her love retreated to a world beyond her reach. The city is showing signs of recovery, but many will never know the truth of what happened. Nonetheless, what Totinos has left behind will live on in the hearts of the people. At least, that's what I want to believe. I want to see his fire in their hearts." We see Maya in the office. The random rookie reporter from the beginning of the game walks up and tells her the chief is calling her. He also says he's decided to stay at his job and work hard. So it's a little mirroring of the conversation they had at the beginning of the game, except now he's filled with motivation and hope you care about him. We see Balfu at Miki's grave. He says everyone's looking for someone these days. It's time to move on. He says he's not chasing rumors anymore and started an agency for finding missing people in the aftermath of what happened. A car horn honks, and Balfu says his partner is summoning him. Ulala walks up and tells Balfu they need to get going or their client will get angry. Balfu walks away, and Ulala tells Miki that she'll take care of him. And I want at least 5 seasons of Ulala and Balfu's missing person agency detective show.
I'm glad you both enjoy that. Okay, so maybe I just was reading this incorrectly, but I felt like this wasn't just a like, oh, they've got a business together, but it was also a like, oh, and they're dating. And I was like, no, screw you, game. Do not do that to Ulala.
I don't think they're dating.
Okay.
I think they're just friendly now, and they're...
I could take that then. That would be good then.
Yeah. For Ulala to complain about her luck in men so much and then actively decide to date Balfu after getting to know him would be ridiculous of her. Next, we see a bunch of first gamers meeting up and talking about shit. It's just fan service for those who played the first game. It is not important. Now we see Lisa, Aikichi, and June all wander up to Elia's shrine separately. They all feel sad, like they've lost something, but they don't know what. And actually, in the alternate timeline, Lisa and Aikichi had remembered, but June hadn't. That's why the world didn't end. And we actually see Lisa and Aikichi both there hanging out, crying about what happened. And June wanders up because he felt like he was called there and is like, why are y'all hanging out at a shrine and crying? And it's a really good scene in that version as well. Anyway, we see Totinos and Katsuya on the beach. They have mostly silent bro bonding time. Totinos asks if it's hard to become a detective. Katsuya says he'll teach him how to become one. So Totinos is going to be a cop too. We see Maya at a crosswalk. Philemon's butterfly flies by. Traffic stops, and as she's about to cross, she sees Totinos on his motorcycle. She walks across the road, and traffic resumes. She looks back as Totinos drives away. The end.
Hell yeah. Not my favorite Persona ending, but I still liked it. I really liked...
I don't think you've beaten Persona 4 or Persona 5, so I think that means your favorite Persona ending is Persona 3?
I've beaten Persona 5. I have not beaten Persona 5 Royal. So if the ending of Royal is better than the ending of 5. 5 is really good, but I still think that 3 is my favorite because the bad ending is so drastic. Like, I love the way that game can end just a month before everything else. And because it really feels like, because there's such that huge gap, and in that gap you have to not only get to the top of Tartarus, but also survive a 15 fucking stage boss fight. I'm
sorry, what?
Yeah. So the boss changes through every single one of the Arcana and then has a final form. So 14 Arcana plus a final form. It's ridiculous. So it really feels like you had to pry the good ending out of the game's cold dead hands, and I really like that about it. But
so interesting thing about Persona 5. I won't go into details because spoilers. But so basically the part of the ending of Persona 5 Royal, I think, is actually worse than the ending of Persona 5 Vanilla.
Interesting.
And I don't think I want to say any more.
Yeah, I will.
But I have strong feelings about one aspect of the ending.
I will play it eventually.
I can tell you more about it off the air if you're interested, but...
I would say Eternal Punishment is my second favorite because I've only played that and Innocent Sin in terms of the ending, and I preferred Innocent Sin's ending.
Innocent Sin's ending is refreshingly bleak.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's listen to Persona 2 music before we talk more.
Yes.
Memorable moments and or thoughts about these two huge games?
Yeah, so 2 memorable moments that I had. I realized that one of them was the part from 2 weeks ago or whatever, where you could pick to have Nate or Ellen on your party. I accidentally watched all of Ellen's part because they just drop them in with no fanfare in the game movie. But on Ellen's part, she has a stalker, and Ulala hates the stalker, and they just cuss the shit out of each other constantly. and it's fantastic.
It's so good.
It's all bleeped. So it's just like, I'm just going to bleep your bleep with the bleep bleeper, and it's
easily in my top 5 moments for the whole game.
Yeah, especially because he then becomes a boss fight every time we run into him. So it's voice acted, which is even better. Mm-hmm. It's so good.
And he gets progressively more injured every time.
It's fantastic. But my one from this week is every time Lisa is talking about Tatsuya, she calls him Chinyan, and then the translators were turn of the century Japanese translators, so they put in parentheses darling every single time. You could have just used context clues, you could have just used darling, but using both is the absolute worst way to translate it, and it's fantastic.
Translator's note: Chinyan means darling.
Exactly.
This is worse than that because it's a reminder every time.
And also, it's supposed to be a foreign word that the other characters wouldn't necessarily understand.
It cracked me up every time it popped up. I am glad that these games weren't translated at the same time. It made playing through them fantastic.
I actually agree. It's fun getting to compare and contrast the very different translation styles of two different eras.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Was a little rough going from polished to unpolished.
That's true.
Yes.
The reverse would have been better.
I really liked Shadow Balfu's portrait. It was scary.
It was really good.
Oh man, remember at the beginning of this game when Joker showed up and we were like, oh, this Joker is scary.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, anyone else have some memoirs from this chunk?
I've got a few. There's that scene in the subway where they're talking about where Totinos asks about what it's like to be an adult, and kind of have the characters ruminating on that, and Baofu gives the most grim, dark answer you can give that also felt way too real. Where, gosh, what does he say? He says something about it's mostly the same as being a teen, but the pain keeps growing. And I'm like, that's a depressingly good answer.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I just felt like that was a really fascinating thing to bring in near the end here, considering the first game had mostly teens with one or two adult party members, depending on what point in the game you're in. And then this game is all adults until the end where you get the teen.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting to contrast the world of being a teenager with the world of being an adult, and then getting a character really asking about it and getting that the answer that this game has shown, which is yeah, it's not that different, but it is a lot more painful.
Mm-hmm.
Which then comes in honestly kind of beautifully in the end with Baofu saying that there are some things that are still good.
Mm-hmm.
Other memorable moment things. There was a point when Ulala asked the question, "What's a henbei?" and my brain immediately thought it was a setup for some weird variation on a henwei joke.
Is that oh, I remember when that was. Yeah. That was
it was during an exposition dump.
Yeah, an exposition dump, which I did not mention because it's completely irrelevant.
It is utterly irrelevant. Not worth talking about, except for I just thought that was funny. I liked the twist that Tatsuya actually refused to give up his memories.
Yes.
The last game, and that's what caused all these problems. That was a really brilliant idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it really uses the last game's ending in a way I liked. Of that was a bleak ending, how could you voluntarily go through with that? Maybe not everyone could.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like when we got to the ending of it, I thought it was going to be like, oh, like the bad guy was planning on this and things still had to happen. And so you get the gang back together and they all have like a vague feeling of what it's like. I was very surprised that Totinos remembered everything, and finding out now that it's because making hard choices is hard. It was really, really cool.
And it fits in well with his characterization in the first game. This idea that at the beginning of the game he is struggling to really decide what he wants to do as an adult, and he kind of adds his general characterization. Like Tatsuya comes off, or Totinos comes off as this character who, he's this cool, edgy loner. But underneath that, he's just someone who isn't really great at making choices. Like, he can be very wishy-washy and unsure to commit to things, which is just good characterization.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate y'all correcting yourselves.
Yeah.
when y'all accidentally call him Tatsuya for some reason, even though his name is Totinos.
Yeah.
Tatsuya is a different character.
Yeah, it's really weird that they never
do anything with that.
They never do anything with the fact that Tatsuya Sudo and Tatsuya Suo are two different characters. They don't use it at all.
The only thing I can think is it's a case of like the similarity between the names isn't as big a deal in Japanese as it is when you anglicize them.
Yeah, I looked it up last game because we were weird, and it's 3 different kanji. So reading it would have been, it probably would read more as a pun in Japanese that they have the same name and not it actually being confusing.
Okay, if it's different kanji that are read the same way, that makes it less weird. Definitely.
That's what I was actually thinking it had to be. Yeah. Because Japanese is like that. That something fell over.
Yes, I dropped my phone.
Oopsie. I guess one other thing, and this is sadly I think I didn't super care for as much, is just compared to the last game where you because you're in control of Totinos, you can kind of decide where his affections lie, including in the lovely gay direction with June, even though I personally like him and Lisa. I was a little annoyed that this game was basically like, oh yeah, no, it's him and Maya's canon. Like the last bit of the game like makes that a big focal point, and I'm like, okay, but what if that just wasn't the thing that you were going for in the first game?
Yeah, because like Maya is a young enough adult that like in 3 or 4 years it wouldn't be weird, but it's not 3 or 4 years yet. It's weird. So it never came up for me. They were never once a part of my shipping circle together at all. For them to have this star-crossed, forlorn, across time and space love at the end of this game being a plot point was out of absolute nowhere for me.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one feeling that way. Like, she was listed among the like when it's like, oh, who do you actually like, Totino's last game? You could say Maya, but I never really considered that.
I felt like in the first game, it was always... I felt like even in the first game, it was clear that Maya was canon and that the other options were just there for fun.
Interesting, because I didn't get that feeling at all.
Yeah, I mean,
for some reason, I always felt like that was the canon pairing.
I mean, I feel like, I guess I'm just not a big fan of there being a canon pairing.
I'm not saying that because they are my OTP or anything. I just felt like that was in the text.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I'm sure going back, I could see hints of it. I just didn't at the time. And I was enjoying too much things like in this game when Totino's brother finds out about Lisa's crush on him and is like, okay, well, clearly I have to start planning the wedding now. Like, that was just cute as hell.
That was very funny. Do we have any more memorable moments from this week?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So Bernard, you said you disagreed with our take on these 2 games. What's all that about?
Please elaborate.
Remind me what y'all's take was.
that we liked the first game better than the second game. And
I think the second game is way better than the first game. I think the only thing about the first game that's better is that you kill Hitler. Whereas in this game, the secret conspiracy theory is the New World Order, which like technically isn't anti-Semitic, I guess, but that's sort of in the way that swastika isn't technically necessarily a Nazi thing.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say it feels like it's like saying like Hydra aren't Nazis. It's like, I mean, they basically are, but okay.
Yeah. I prefer killing Hitler, obviously.
Yes.
But I think other than that, I think the gameplay balance in the second game is better. I think the characters are way more interesting in the second game. I mean, that's the main thing. I think the characters are way more interesting and better developed, and I was more invested, and we didn't have like June show up to replace Yukino at the end.
Yeah, so here's what I think why I think it flipped on me, and I think it only flipped on me like this week or last week, is the first game had a better ending, so it stuck in my mind, because now as you were talking about it, I remember complaining in the first game that it kind of just like, oh, let's just go to this new place now, and then it kind of like we were almost to the end of the game and had no idea really what was going on, and then Hitler showed up, and it was kind of like haphazard. And this game, I remember earlier on being like, oh, this is a lot more like investigating and figuring things out, and I feel things are happening in this order on purpose more in this game. But I think just here at the end, like the new characters weren't tied into the ending as much, and it tied into the ending of the first game, which I loved a whole lot. So it flipped how I actually felt about them. Like it just the endings. The ending of the first game is a better capstone to a overall worse game, where this one, because the ending doesn't tie in the new characters as much, it made them feel not as important here in this moment. And now that it's over, it's the last thing on my mind. So I think you convinced me, Bernard. I think I've turned around.
Cool. See, I'm right.
Well, I will happily be wrong and explain my wrongness. Okay. I've actually been leaning towards the first game for a while now. Not the whole time. I was definitely enjoying the breath of fresh air aspects early on, and I still really like about what's new about this game. I do really largely like the cast. I do really enjoy the way it tackles more adult subject matter. I just feel like it runs into an issue which can be done very well. I just don't feel like it was done super well in this case, where when you have a direct sequel to something and it has a mostly new cast, but the story is still very much about the things from the last one, and it mirrors so much of this game is just a mirror of what happened in the first game, which I feel like a lot of that is just reusing assets, which honestly, fine. I get it. That's, necessary for cost. But it does mean that, like we mentioned in the recap, there's, they're doing these little character bits at the end of the game for the other party members of their shadow stuff. And it is kind of this is interesting. I wish we'd gotten more focus on this kind of stuff, because I felt like the party members got really underserved by the plot on the whole, because the plot was so about what happened last game, and thus so about the protagonists from last game. And then when it wasn't about that, it was about stuff from the first Persona 1. Mm-hmm. And so there was just a lot less room for this game to have its own story. And what it did do with it, I just felt the New World Order just isn't as interesting to me as some of the things in the first game. I mean, it's all right, but that kind of plot line is just kind of dull to me at this point. I've seen too many conspiracy plots like that, I think. And you have to do something really interesting with them, I feel like, to really pull them off in a way I find fascinating. So yeah, on the whole, I just feel like it ran into the issue of being so much about innocent sin that I just kind of prefer Innocent Sin, because Innocent Sin, I felt, as much as that game had issues, which it absolutely did, I am also in the camp of I will never stop complaining about Jude coming in to replace Yukino at the end. But yeah. I still feel like that game worked more cohesively for me. But I also understand where you're coming from with it, and I definitely think it does do a lot of great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like the protagonists from this game, the new characters in this game, got pretty fully developed and got the screen time and attention they need. I do feel like the Persona 1 implementation was a little underbaked. We talked before how the bad guy from the first game just shows up and isn't really developed because it's just like, he's from the first game. You remember the first game? And it's like, well, no, I played the first game like 6 years ago. Or no, I didn't play the first game. So I think either there should be less first game stuff or more Persona 1 stuff where we actually get the characters, the Persona 1 characters, getting more development and talking about what happened and their feelings about what happened back then and everything, more than just being there for fan service, which is what it felt like.
Yeah. And like, I don't know if they're going for like Innocent Sin was the bad timeline, and so Persona 1 wasn't the past for Innocent Sin, and so it's here a lot more in Eternal Punishment to like cement that this is the real world or whatever. I kind of got that might be what they were going for, but it still was weird to me that it was the second half of this duology that suddenly you had to remember what happened 2 games ago to fully enjoy.
I think maybe it's just that Eternal Punishment is about adults and the Persona 1 characters are adults now.
True.
And Persona 2 Innocent Sin did have first game stuff. It had Yukino.
Yeah, but it didn't have like every character that showed up from the first game just were like, oh yeah, remember when we played the Persona game a while back? Interesting. And that was it. So we could tell like, oh, these were characters from the first game, not the bad guy of the first game shows up and is a major antagonist of this second game.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say, I actually feel like, we mentioned it earlier a little bit. I feel like Eriko, aka Ellen, contributed as a temporary, sadly, only temporary party member. I honestly would have been fine with her staying and getting more development, but she contributed like some of my favorite stuff in this game. I really enjoyed, as much as I really don't like that dungeon, I really enjoyed this. I think the stalker plot was mostly well done and had a lot of really entertaining stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like this game.
I do too. It's good. I like both games.
Yeah. I still think I like the modern flavor of Persona leaps and bounds better, but of the expanded Shin Megami Tensei franchise that I've done, this one's pretty up there.
Yeah.
I mean, Persona 3 through 5 get a lot of mileage out of being something very unique mechanically, whereas mechanically, Persona 1, Persona 2, and Persona 2 Part 2 are kind of just regular JRPGs with some with some, like, they aren't more unique than any other JRPG in terms of mechanics. Whereas Persona 3 through 5, nothing else is really doing that successfully, at least. Perhaps, unless there's some games I don't know about. And if there are some games I don't know about, I hope people tell me about them.
Yeah. As someone less familiar with the Persona franchise who's coming in a weird spot in it, like I said at the very, very beginning of my showing up to co-host, I played a bit of Persona 3. I know almost nothing about Persona 4. And then I watched a ex play a lot of Persona 5. And yeah, I feel like I definitely want to play Persona 5 at some point.
Persona 5 is so good.
Persona 5, I think the thing is Persona 5, I think is probably going to be my favorite. And if not for nothing else, the style is just so on point.
Is off the charts.
It's so stylish.
Like, that's just a game of when you take your art direction and your sound direction and every aspect of the game in that way, and you all push it in a very particular, unique direction, it can really work.
Also, one thing I love about Persona 5 is it has the theme of, Phantom Thieves, and it uses that theme so strongly, constantly. Like, they're not called social links anymore, they're called confidants. And just little things like that add so much flavor.
Oh, that's absolutely one of my favorite things, too, is someone who loves the Phantom Thief trope. I mean, Ace Attorney, you'd get me to talk about Mask to Mask, and I'm happy. Like, I adore that trope. And so hearing, like, oh, there's going to be a Persona game about that, I was like, excuse me? That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to replay Persona 3, because I haven't fully played it in many, many years. But even after I replay it, Persona 5 might still be my favorite Persona.
Yeah, I played famously. You can roll back the tapes and hear me play Persona 3 and 5 at the same time. And
that's a bad idea.
It was a very bad idea. That's why I finished Persona 3 in about 10 weeks, and I finished Persona 5 in about 2 years. The thing about Persona games is they're real big, and you get real tired of doing a real big thing the moment that it's over. But I really love them for opposite reasons. Like, Persona 3 is very weird and creepy and cool, whereas Persona 5 is style and Persona 5-ness, and they're really good. I don't even remember what I was talking about when I brought it up. I just wanted to say that I like 3 and 5 a whole lot.
They're really good.
Also, I'm very happy 5 gave proper credit to the originator of the trope by having Joker's initial persona be based on Arsène Lupin.
Mm-hmm.
So good. But you know what else is good?
What?
Donating on our Ko-Fi so that you can vote on our next game. The voting will be open for another week. Right now, Crusader of Sinti is winning 3-1.
Nice.
So if 3 people are like, you know what? Don't play that game. You should play Beyond Oasis and listen to Femke said earlier.
Yuzo
Koshiro music. If that's what you're into, you can go and donate on the Ko-Fi and get access to the poll and vote it on up. So do that, because polls close in a week. But if you don't want to do that, you should still go donate so that we can keep the lights on and pay for games. We have, I think, 3 opportunities to play brand spanking new games coming up, and all of your donations help us continue to do stuff like that. So many of our brethren podcasts have rules that it has to be 10 years old, because that's where all the games are cheap. and they can get them digitally for no big deal. And we play on the cutting edge because of you guys supporting us. So keep doing that.
Play on the cutting edge of obscure Sega Mega Drive Zelda likes.
Yes. Not the next one is brand new games, but we have in the pipeline, like Book Club no Kiseki we're waiting for Trails from Zero to come out. So that's a brand new game. That we technically bought it twice. We all bought the Asian version to play the fan translation, but none of us want to have to do that. So we're going to buy it again so we can have it on our Switch and or Steam Deck. But yeah, if you donate a one-off donation or subscribe for $1 a month, you can get access to the aforementioned polls to vote on our next game, or you can and you can get access to the Book Club no Kiseki episodes a month before everybody else does. And you also get your name turned green in the Discord, which is super cool. But if you want to support us a little bit more, we have a $5 membership tier where you not only get all of those things, but we also shout out your name at the end of every episode, just like this. Shout outs to AARon524, Cerebral Wind, Anthony Lerma, Vimk, JFro Prime, Eli Bergmas, Doho, and Tuxedo Kin. We also then have the Luminary tier, which is for $20 a month, where not only will we read out your name, but any URL or one-sentence shout-out you want us to do. Our only Luminary is a dentist, not a Twitch streamer, so his shout-out is for your own mouth. And he says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, the time before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I've been David Bernard Hauk.
And I'm Trish.
Next week, we will still be doing game content from this game, even though we just beat it. The PSP has a alternate scenario, and Bernard's going to tell us all about it, and we're going to watch a video about it. We'll do that next week, and then week after that will be a movie night that I don't know what we'll do yet.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, toodaloo, folks.
This episode was comfortably over an hour. Yes.
Hell yeah.
We did it.
We still got it in us.